much does training change when you're dealing with a specialist, like a guy like Khabib, who is just a grappling phenom? How much do you shift the emphasis of the training to take down defense, working on grappling? And do you work mostly takedown defense, or do you just work overall wrestling so that takedown defense becomes a part of that as well?
All of that.
All of that.
But yeah, definitely. We maybe talk about it later. Like, if there's one thing I could change, is that I think I was too defensive in my mindset for this training camp. But Khabib has very specific types of takedowns depending on where he is, whether it's shooting on the low single in the middle, and then on the fence. You know, long before Conor was due to fight him, I loved watching him. That's kind of my area, is defense. I just love, right from the Randy Couture days, how to use defense, and Khabib does it to a new level. You know, one of the takedowns he hit on Conor, he hadn't actually done it until the Alaquinta fight, so it was nice that we kind of got to see that at the high crotch. I'd see a bit of DC in that, the high crotch and then trip on the far leg, and I think he blocked it once, but he did catch him with it. So, you know, there's very specific takedowns. Definitely for this training camp, it was the most specific that we went. And then I remember about a week out or whenever it was, he did an interview and he said, well, if he doesn't make it, I'll fight Tony. I don't care who it is. And I was going, damn it. I hadn't even looked at Tony's fights in so long. So me and the other coaches start okay, quick, what does he do again? Oh yeah, he has that style. Because we were so specific for this one.
Tony could possibly be a fight in the future. When you think about the future now after the Khabib fight, what are you thinking? Are you thinking about just rest, let the dust settle, and then look at the landscape? Like how does he approach it now?
I might, but he doesn't.
What does he?
He's
think?
Screaming and shouting for the rematch within minutes.
It's hard to push for that rematch though after that fight, right?
Sure. No, I understand the logic of that. You know, Tony's kind of earned and stuff, but I also understand this is a business, and it would be a huge fight. You know, the rematch would be a huge fight.
Don't you think that it would be difficult to sell because of how dominant Khabib was in that fight?
Sure. I do think the round 3 showed promise. Like I said, I would have liked to have changed things up a little bit. Specifically, a more offensive mindset. I thought defensively we did quite well, but offensively we weren't really where we usually are. And you know, right when the fight was over, I was thinking, you know what, I was kind of going into this like not to lose, but not to win. You know, and his shots weren't as crisp as they normally are. He had opportunities to hit him, especially in the 3rd round, and he just seemed to be the range or something was off.
Do you think how much of it had to do with the fact that he hadn't fought MMA in 2 years?
Absolutely. You know,
had to, right?
Yeah, of course. And we tried to mimic it as close as we could in the gym, and I brought in guys that he didn't know, and I would say this is fight day, and he would do with George exactly what he's going to do on fight day, and we'd have a referee, and so to get the fight feel, but it's still in the gym with your mates. You know,
is he at a position now where every fight has to be a gigantic super fight, and is that a problem? In that, you know what I thought after the fight, after it was all over, I was like, you know what a good fight would be him versus Pettis. Like, that would be a really good fight, and it would be a really interesting fight in terms of stylistic matchup, and it would be a great fight, I think, for Conor to sort of just get a wild 3-round, or even, I guess it would probably be a main event. It would be 5 rounds, but it would be a wild fight that would probably favor him.
Yeah. I mean, the boxing, you know, when Tyson Fury was kind of coming back, they gave him you know, not the toughest guy in the world.
That shit doesn't happen in MMA.
But it doesn't happen in MMA.
Well, it doesn't happen in the UFC.
Specifically the UFC.
Specifically. And there's an issue with that, I think.
Yeah, you know, he was... you know, at his early stages, he was fighting all the time. And as is natural, as you get older and as you achieve more, it is going to start becoming, you know, once or twice a year. Right. That's just a natural progression of an athlete. I don't care who you are.
But the wild fights that he could have at 155 pounds, whether it's James Vick or Justin Gaethje or Pettis, or there's good fights for him that aren't necessarily Khabib, they aren't necessarily Tony Ferguson, but they're a good fight to get that timing back, get everything locked in, you know.
100%, but you have to factor in his personality. And he's only fighting now for fights that are really interesting to him. He's not that interested in anybody. Not that I've heard.
Floyd Mayweather paper.
Oh, yeah.
That's the problem. All that money.
Right. So, you know,
Yeah.
What more can he, even with his spending, what
well,
more
the
can he
idea
buy?
would be the eye on the future and the eye on the rematch. Like getting everything dialed in so that when he does have a rematch with Khabib, he is samurai sword sharp.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
As opposed to having 2 years off, one boxing fight in between them, and then such a grappling heavy contest.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That would be a trainer, for me as a trainer, that would be the ideal.
But it would be hard to motivate him for that.
I think it would be hard to motivate him, and it's not it's not really the UFC model. It was obvious it was going to be those. You know what I mean? It was going to be those two.
But if anybody could tell the UFC what time it is, it's Conor.
Khabib time.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody is the guy that can say, hey, this is what I want a fucking tune-up fight. I want a tough guy.
He absolutely could.
Yeah.
And he absolutely wouldn't. Who was like when he lost the Diaz one fight.
Yeah.
And backstage, he was screaming and shouting at all the top brass about getting the rematch at 170 as quick as possible. I'm in the background going, "No, please don't." Did you not see that fight? He's a terrifying individual.
Right.
Let's get a 155 fight, and okay, maybe you meet him again, but he was not letting that go. And 4 months later, he fought the exact same guy.
And that's where he is right now with Khabib.
That's all I'm hearing from these.
Yeah, well, listen, you could sell it for sure, especially with the fucking chaos after the fight. Just keep Dylan Dennis at home.
Yeah. He's grounded.
Yeah. So, what would you do differently?
Like I said, from a strategy point of view, my number one thing would be to think more offensively. That we definitely had opportunities to land shots, and when Conor lands shots, watch the Eddie fight back again. It doesn't take him a whole lot of shots. He rarely misses, Even if you look at strikes that didn't land, those strikes were for a reason. They were to see what way he holds his hand, see what he moves. Like, I used to love watching Anderson Silva back in the day, and I thought they have a similar kind of approach. But this one, we just didn't seem to be landing. And when I look back at the training camp, we did spend most of our time with a defensive mindset. And I think that's a mistake.